Hello, my name is Tyshelle Jacquet, and I will be sharing with you my story about my miscarriage, how I found out I was pregnant, and much more. Stay tuned. So, let's get to the beginning of the story when I actually found out that I was pregnant before I actually got the positive test. So, how I knew that I was pregnant was of course, I had sore breasts. I really didn't have any pregnancy symptoms other than my sore breasts, and I was very, very hungry. But other than that, God showed me a dream, and in the dream, I was 2 weeks pregnant. That's what was told to me in my dream. So I was 2 weeks pregnant, and the day that I found out that I was pregnant, um, is exactly how it happened in my dream. Um, in my dream, I had implantation bleeding, but dreams are like symbolic. So it was just like a little dot, like a little dot of blood in my dream, and the pregnancy test was positive in the dream. And I remember telling my husband right there and then. And I also remember in my dream thinking, like, this is not how I wanted to tell my husband. This is not how I wanted this pregnancy to be. And so in the dream, it went further, and it actually went to me going to the doctor, and the doctor actually kind of saying that I was not pregnant, and I was pregnant. So, and then the dream also went to an ultrasound. It was like a small little dot, exactly how I seen it in actually a miscarriage. So that part of the dream was not actually me going to the doctor, seeing my baby and checking up on it. This was actually in the dream. Now that I, reflect back what happened in real life, this was actually God showing me, the miscarriage. So the dream happened or whatever, and I woke up and I told my husband that I had a dream that I was pregnant. I texted my mom and told her I had a dream that I was pregnant, and she basically said that God told her as well that somebody was pregnant. And so she said it was going to be a successful pregnancy. So I was like, okay. And I remember for months after me and my husband got married, a little bit before me and my husband got married, I had a strong desire to have a child. I have been desiring to have a child. This is my second miscarriage, so I don't know if that was like something that I was using to grieve, or I don't know if that's just a desire that God had placed down on the inside of me. So I told my husband, and of course he was not ready for children at the time, and he was basically just, maybe you're just pregnant with a vision, or maybe you're just pregnant, but I knew that that's what God had told me. And there were other dreams that I was having, like the church that I was in, about me actually leaving the church and how it was going to happen. And after that was confirmed that I really did have that dream, and that, God was speaking to me, then I knew for a fact that I was pregnant. So my period does not come, and I knew it wasn't coming, and I just went ahead and took the pregnancy test. It took a very, very long time for the line to show up, but it showed up, and it was very, very dark when it finally showed up. And then we went to birth choice the next morning, and we went to the lady. As it happened in my dream, she told me that I was not pregnant. So it's like, okay, I know I'm pregnant. This lady is tripping. So she even asked me, like, are you delusional? Like, she was basically trying to ask me, am I delusional? Am I crazy? Do I usually think that I'm pregnant and I'm not? And so we left, and I came back home, and I went to buy a more accurate pregnancy test, and the pregnancy test did confirm that I was pregnant. So I set up appointments. I was excited, but deep down on the inside of me, I knew that this was not going to be a successful pregnancy. I remember praying, like, before even finding out, during that 2-week period, I was praying to God, asking him, like, am I pregnant, God, or am I not pregnant? I was asking him to take away the desire of me wanting a child because my husband was not ready. And I remember the last words of that prayer was, God, I do not want to have a child out of lust, meaning that I don't want to be the only one lusting after having a child or idolizing having a child before God. And I want this child to be created in love and not out of, just, pure, not really hate, but anger or, sadness and grief. I just didn't want that. So I remember that prayer, and God he didn't speak back when I asked him, was I pregnant? So I kind of already knew. He already showed me in a dream that I was. So back to, us finding out that we were pregnant and doing the doctor's appointments. And I still deep down on the inside knew that I was going to have a miscarriage very, very early in the pregnancy too. So time went on, and probably like a week before the pain and the cramping and the bleeding started, I just kept telling my husband, I just kept telling him, pray for me, pray for my mind, because I have a fear that I'm going to have a miscarriage. And he was just like, okay. He didn't understand. I was just like, well, I've been through this before, but it wasn't the same as last time. Last time I had a miscarriage, there was no pain, there was no nothing. And I knew that I was having a miscarriage when it was happening. But this time, I knew for a fact that this pregnancy was not going to go forth. I don't know what God's reason was for giving me a child at this time and taking it, but I knew in my spirit that I was not going to carry this child very long. So that fear started to sit down in me, and it just bothered me. And I remember having sleep paralysis. And when I had sleep paralysis, I remember specifically it was a demon, of course, that presented himself as my husband, and I remember it trying to come towards me, and then I woke up. So I kind of knew that that's what was going on. Not that a demon was taking my child, but it was just God showing me, step by step that this is what you're about to go through. And of course that fear set down inside of me. And I remember probably Thursday night I watched Four Colored Girls. And the scene where her husband dropped the kids, I felt the miscarriage happening then. I don't know what it was. I don't know why it happened at that time, but that's where in my spirit, I knew that that's what my body was finna go through. I went to sleep. I turned. I couldn't sleep that night. It was very, very hard to sleep. I was sweating. I was hot. And I couldn't go to sleep. And I turned, and there was I turned the wrong way, and there was like a cramp, and that cramp started, and it went. And Friday, I went and got my hair cut. I was going to the bathroom like crazy. So like in my head, I'm just like, okay, well maybe I'm not gonna have a miscarriage. I'm still having pregnancy symptoms. Like I'm going to the bathroom 100 times. Like I kept going to the bathroom like every 30 minutes. So I'm like, okay. After my hair got cut, I was free. I was good. After I got my hair cut, I went home. I went to the bathroom. And when I went to the bathroom, there was light spotting. And the light spotting, I was just like, babe, like, I'm spotting. What's going on? Meanwhile, I already knew what was going on. I was just in denial. So that was already me grieving, because I already knew what God put in my spirit, that this was not going to be a successful pregnancy. I still have yet to know why he implanted this child and allow it to grow that long. I'm very, very grateful because he chose me to do it, but I knew, and I kind of got upset because my husband was just like, just pray. And I was like, no, we got to go to the doctor. Like, what do you mean pray? Like, I've already been through this before. And I just started crying. Like, I just started crying because I knew exactly what was going on. Excuse me. I knew exactly what was going on. So the bleeding, well, it wasn't actually bleeding. It was just spotting. It was brown spotting, and it was go, and it would stop. Then it would come back again. Then it would stop, and it happened all day Friday. And then went to the doctor Friday, and the doctors were like, well, maybe it's just a cyst on your ovaries. Maybe it's just draining, and everything is okay. And so that calmed my spirit. But then the actual doctor came back and said you were having a threatened miscarriage. And she basically said, just take rest. Just rest on Saturday. Don't do anything. Don't have any sex. Don't do anything. Just rest. So we went home, and my husband, I think he was in denial of the situation. So he was just like, don't worry about it. God is going to take care of it. And I knew in the back of my head that this was a miscarriage. So he's just like, don't worry about it. So on Saturday, I rested a little bit. And then we ended up going to, Sam's. And when I was walking, my back just started hurting. So I was just like, okay, maybe I just need to go home and rest like the doctor told me to do. So I went back home. We went back home and rested. And Sunday morning, I was praising God. I was praising, I was singing, I was clapping, and then this pain in my back just started again. The bleeding started getting heavier, and the cramping started to come. And this Sunday, I was praying. I was reminding God, God, in your word, it says that nobody should miscarry. There should be no barren in this land. And this is in Exodus. I was reading Psalms 91, and I was just like basically praying and asking God to please don't allow this to happen to me again. Although I already knew that it was going to happen, although he already told me that it was going to happen, I was begging God for it to not to happen because I didn't want to go through this pain again. And I prayed. I listened to different YouTubes. I listened to a lady's story about how she reversed her miscarriage. And I was just like, God, I don't have that type of faith to, demand something like that from you. So all of it was in my head. I still prayed. I still asked God. And I told God, I said, you can take this child from me, and I'm still going to serve you. I'm still going to praise you. And I still love you, God. And, excuse me, that was one of the hardest things that I had to experience because it was faith. It was God testing my faith. It was God testing my faith. And I talk to God all the time, but I talk to him in my head. And that was the first time in a long time that God used a situation in my life to open my mouth and speak to the mountain. You can't think to the mountain. You have to speak to it. Because I have been silent for a long time. As far as praying to God, I haven't been reading as much as I should be. I know scriptures, I know the word, but it's something about reading because sometimes God speaks to you through the word. And I was relying so much on dreams and visions with the gift that I have. I was relying on it to tell me different things. So I know that this situation was for me to be open to just speaking to God and declaring what it is that he has for my life and speaking it out loud and not just thinking it in my head. And I really thank God for for this miscarriage, because like I am a strong believer that children deliver women from situations that they can't really deliver themselves out of. My first miscarriage delivered me out of a horrible marriage. This second miscarriage delivered me out of a state of silence with God. I've been silent to God. I speak his word. I do what he tells me to do, but for some reason I have had my mouth closed as far as praying to him. I haven't spoke out loud to God. I haven't in a long time. So let me fix my tears. Whew. But to finish the story, I prayed and I prayed and I prayed. I closed the door. I read the Bible, and I just asked God to, give me a sign, give me an answer on what to do. Do I need to go to the doctor, or do I need to have faith and wait till tomorrow and hope that there's a baby in there? And something told me, go to the ER. And I ignored it. I did, because I was listening to my husband. He was basically saying to wait till Monday, and there's going to be a baby. But I knew that he was just in denial of what was going on. He didn't want to actually witness me going through a miscarriage. And so I stayed as long as I could, and the pain increased, and it increased. And I tried to take some Tylenol, and the pain just kept coming, and then I started clotting, and it was time to go to the ER. So we went to the ER, and I already knew. And when they told me that there was no baby in there, I did not cry. I didn't get upset. I accepted it for what it was, and we left. I went to sleep. I prayed to God, and I prayed to God, then I went to sleep, and it was just a very awakening experience, not just for myself, but for my husband as well. He reflected back on, different things that he wasn't doing in his spiritual walk. And it's not like we're just bad people. We serve God. We go to church. The church that we were at, we were serving God without, complaint. We were doing it. But in our personal time, there was no, talking to God. There was no reading the Bible. It was just read the Bible for Sunday school to teach. It was always just for other people. It wasn't for ourselves. So we were feeding other people, but not feeding ourselves. So it took that. And I prayed to God, and I told God that I'm sorry that it took something so tragic to pull me back closer to you. And I'm sorry that it took something so tragic for me to sing your music, God. I'm sorry that it took all of this. And I'm really, really grateful. And I know that I'm going to be a mother one day. That's a promise. I had the dream before I miscarried that I was holding a baby. I think it was a baby boy, actually. I had the dream, and that was God confirming his promise to me that I am going to bring you children. You're going to have a successful pregnancy one day. I just need you to talk to me. I need you to pray to me. I need you to talk to me. He misses me, and I miss him. And I'm glad that God gave me the strength to actually go through this process. It just happened Sunday, so today is Tuesday. So I did my grieving. I know I grieve pretty quickly. I really do. Maybe because I already knew it was happening. I already went through the grieving process. But I am very, very grateful. I know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. I know that God still loves me, and he loves you as well. And whoever is going through or has been through and feel discouraged or feel like something is wrong with them, there is nothing wrong with you. God just needs your attention. And I love children. I desire to have children, and that was the one thing that got my attention. And I just thank God that God didn't take my life or disable me for me to do his will, to do what he has called me to do. And that is to sometimes intercede on the behalf of others, prophesy and sing his word. And sometimes I have a Delilah. I think my Delilah is hair and makeup, honestly. It distracts me from God. It keeps me from God. I run to it when I just don't feel like being used by God. That's what I run to. And so God just used, he used that child to deliver me again. And I pray that the next pregnancy is a successful one, and that it's not a wake-up call or a lesson or, something from God trying to tell me. But thank you for listening, and make sure you like, share, comment, subscribe, and thank you. Goodbye.